Good afternoon. It's good to see you all. If I didn't get a chance to stop at your table and greet you, I appreciate you being here and supporting us. I'd like to start by thanking the Chamber for hosting the event every year, as well as the sponsors, Armstrong, Hospice of Medina County, and Ruoff Mortgage. We appreciate your sponsorship. The department heads, I believe, are all to my left here. A couple are at the second table. With all due respect, I'm the person where it stops at the corner office, but this is where the work gets done day in and day out. And I couldn't appreciate them more for each and everything they do. Also here are a number of my family members, my mom, Nancy, my Aunt Elaine and Uncle Carl from California, my son, John, and his significant other, Christy, and my wife of 44 years, just a couple weeks ago, Christine. We also have a number of elected officials here, in addition to myself. Keith Durham is in the back, our finance director. Councilman Jim Shields is here up front. School board member who registered you and maybe still at the registration table is Rebecca Parkhurst, Medina County Commissioner Colleen Swedick, and Rebecca Armstrong is from the State Treasurer Robert Sprague's office. We appreciate you all being here as well. Miss Janie Parrish just walked in. Thank you, Janie. Yeah. Now it's important. I was waiting for this, and that's why this special entrance. Janie is not only the executive director of the Wadsworth Chamber of Commerce. Janie is the campaign director for my campaign for the 4 successful terms we've had, and she's done a great job with it, and we do appreciate Janie. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Miles and Jared for this outstanding presentation you're going to see, as well as Sherry, who puts together the annual report for the city, and that's kind of the outline we use then to drive the program. Okay, Miles. So we're going to start with the Community Development Department. It's comprised of Building Department, Economic Development, and Planning and Zoning. The advantage of that is having a one-stop location, so people wanting to bring a business in or expand a business here have one place to go and get all their answers, all their permits, whatever they need. But the secondary advantage is by having them all together in one place, we could have one clerk out on vacation and cross-trained everybody in that office. So building can cover for building, economic development can cover for economic development, and the same with planning and zoning. So it's a much more effective and efficient customer service model. And through Dan Gladish's leadership, we're able to issue same-day permits for those that we don't have to go out in the field. People pay their fee, go to the finance window, fill out the paperwork, go to the finance window to pay, and then walk out with their permit the same day. That doesn't happen in other cities. And those that we have to go out and take a look at are generally next day permits. So we might have to check like the pool's so far from the property line or a shed or whatever. We try to do in-house plan reviews whenever possible because again, that expedites it. Okay, the building department, commercial revenues from permits were in excess of $108,000. This is for 2021. The commercial construction in our community was in excess of $57 million. At every ribbon cutting that we have, and we're going to talk about those in just a minute, but in every ribbon cutting that we have in the city of Medina, Dan Gladish and his staff are always mentioned in a very positive manner because of the way they work with people and assist people and help people. Economic development, we have the combined ribbon cuttings with the Medina Chamber, Main Street Medina, county and state officials, as well as liaisons from our federal legislators arranged by Kimberly Marshall. And we had a suburb come up and visit us. Kimberly, myself, Andrew, Jacqueline from the Chamber and George from Main Street, and they were shocked that the city, the Chamber, and Main Street all work together, because down around Columbus, everybody's doing their own individual thing, but not working together. Here in Medina, we collaborate, we do everything together, we support one another, promote one another, and that's a key to the success we see day in and day out. So you all know, if you drove in the city over the last 3 or 4 years, that we did a massive widening project. It took 2 years of North Court Street from Harding Street to the north city limits. And it was about a $21 million project, mostly ODOT. Only about $2 million of that was the city, because we wanted to add the center islands, the decorative lights, the multimodal path, and we kicked in the extra for that. But it was of interest to me, after Kimberly recommended it, that we study all of the investments that were made in that region from the time we started the project to date. And I'm happy to report to you that that matched the $21 million. $21 million in improvements and investments of commercial properties in that stretch. So then that piqued my interest, because I'm an inquisitive guy. So I asked, we spent $14 million earlier in my term as mayor, doing every industrial road in the city. And we spent $14 million on that, and we looked at the industrial expansions, improvements, and everything that happened during that process from 2011 to 2021, and that number is $263 million that our local industry invested. That's higher property taxes, that's more employees, and more income tax. That tells me if the city invests, investments from the private and commercial sectors will as well. Then 2 short stories. Better get my phone out so I don't talk too long. 2 short stories. One is Fierce Tanning Salon in Medina Shopping Center. When I was there, I was approached by a woman who was the aunt of the owner, and she told me, I attended your State of the City last year, and I heard you talk about your processes and how your staff works with business owners, and I'm here to tell you that my nephew and I witnessed that through his whole process of fixing up this commercial space for his tanning salon. And the second was Hutch Nutrition ribbon cutting. The owner told me that he had never opened up anything that had to do with food, and of course that involves the health department and the sanitary engineer, and he was just unsure of how to do some of these processes, and he told me that Dan Gladish went with him to the health department and to the sanitary engineer's office to help him work through the questions and get everything he needed to get the approvals to open it up. That tells me, as Ron preemptively said, that there is something special about Medina. With our planning and zoning, we finalized the comprehensive plan just last night. Council passed that. And I just want to mention the vast community involvement we had. We had boards, people could sign up suggestions. We had meeting after meeting. We had public meetings, meetings with the council, and it was important to make the comprehensive plan as good as it can be. We have community development block grants overseen by planning and zoning. These help fund public transit, code enforcement, the Let's Make a Difference program, and fair housing. We also have community housing impact preservation grants, and we collaborate again with the city of Brunswick. If the city did ours alone, we would get $300,000. If Brunswick did theirs alone, they would get $300,000. By doing them collaboratively, and we take on the administrative duties and get some of the grant dollars for that, we each get an extra $50,000. So that's $50,000 apiece, or $100,000 for the county of Medina as a result of being willing to work together and collaborate. The other thing that we did this year, and it's the second time since I was mayor, was have Law Director Greg Huber and Todd Hunt have training for our 3 boards and commissions. Those are Historic Preservation, Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And why that's so important to me and so important to you as business owners is we have to ensure that those those commission members with all due respect and trying to do the best job they can, but stick to what the code requires of them. Not their personal feelings, not the colors they like, not any of these other things, but what the code requires of them. And that training helps ensure that those things are happening. In our engineering department, construction projects in 2021 exceeded $2.5 million. But thanks to Pat Patton, they always do a great job of looking for grants. So of that 2.5 million, 800,000 was outside grant dollars. We're in the design and planning phase for last year and this year, and we expect those projects to be nearly $13 million. I know Armstrong is here. We had here in the last 8-9 months 3 different companies putting fiber through our city. One was Armstrong, one was Medina Fiber, and the other is Frontier, which is kind of just ramping up right now. But that's caused some disruption in public service. Every once in a while, they're trying to avoid the utilities, and if they nick a water line or they break a piece of sidewalk or a piece of driveway apron, it's taken a good deal of time, the city time, because obviously we have to go out and mark every one of those water lines. And then if they don't get to it in 10 days, then we have to mark it a second time, sometimes a third time. But the fiber is good. I know it's an inconvenience while it's going on, but the fiber is good for everybody because it will then provide competition here in the city for everybody. And just a little story, the owner of the nursery reached out to me. The nursery is on Spring Grove, just south of Sidney Fenn Elementary School. And we had to tear out the culvert, work it around the school schedule, and the road was totally shut down because it was a massive culvert that had failed. And we wanted to do it while the school was out because the buses need that. He said he couldn't be more impressed with the city because we were constantly stopping in, giving him updates, as well as the parents, greeting the parents, waving to the kids on the way in, waving to the kids on the way out. And that's important when your life's being disrupted to have something good happening along with it. Our fire department is next. I'm proud of the collaboration between police and LST. We respond with police and LST to every fire call. Our fire department services the city of Medina, Medina Township, and Montville Township, and those collectively are around 50,000 people, or the size of Strongsville, if you add those 3 geographical regions. And you can see the call volumes on the screen. I'm not going to read those for you. What we're operating under now is daytime and afternoon staffing, Monday through Friday. So we have an engine fully staffed, and then daytime staffing Saturday and Sunday, and we have the means within the budget to do an afternoon shift on the weekends as well, Saturday and Sunday. Our problem is, much like you all are facing day to day, is trying to find people willing to be firefighters and hire them, people that we think would fit with our team. So we're continuing to work on that. It's my hope and goal in the very near future we can add that second shift on the weekends. Going to a 24-hour shift is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. We're either going to need a levy, we're going to need to generate more revenue, or both. And I just wanted to mention Chief Larry Walters. He has been since he took over as chief, very involved in the community and public relations, and I thank you, Chief, for that. Our law department, the staffing is comprised of 4 part-time prosecutors, one of which is also our law director, Mr. Huber. The clerical staff includes 1 full-time clerk and 2 part-time clerks. We do 5-year budgets in the city versus a 1-year budget. So we projected out a couple years ago that starting next January 2023, we're going to eliminate the 2 part-time positions and go to 2 full-time positions because of the amount of work and the need that we have there to handle the day-to-day paperwork. And some may not be aware, you may be aware that we have 2 municipal courts in the city, or in the county of Medina. One is the Medina Municipal Court, one is the Wadsworth. The Medina Municipal Court, though, actually handles 2/3 of the county, and Wadsworth Municipal Court handles the remaining southern third. So the call volume, obviously, in the Medina Municipal Court is escalated as a result of that. And the law department under Greg Huber does a great job with that. Greg also, which I apologize to him weekly, handles all of the civil and other legal matters for the city. Every legal contract I'm obligated under the charter, every legal contract or agreement for the city, I have to sign personally, and I don't sign anything until the law director approves it. So he's always my check and balance. Our rec center, Medina Community Rec Center, the building is now 20 years old. So we're beginning the process of replacing some of the aged equipment. I'd like to especially thank Murray and Sue Van Epp, who recently donated 12 new spin bikes for us because they wanted to be part of the equipment renovation. You can see there on the screen some of the pool updates with the Jungle Cove and water features. We modified the area where people enter the building and exit the building to move people in more effectively and efficiently. And I'd like to mention Jansen Worley, who took over the oversight of the rec center after our former director resigned. And as you'll find out shortly, he oversees parks, cemetery, forestry, as well as the rec center, and he's doing a great job with each. Next is Medina TV. And again, I want to thank Miles and Jared for putting together the presentation and the background photos and videos. They do a great job with this. They've been providing video services to the city, and we partner with the schools for over 21 years. Their studio is actually in the high school complex at the southwest corner. Just recently, they partnered with Main Street Medina and the Medina County Commissioners because they were pleased with the programming running in the city and thought that they could contract with us to provide that. That's good for us if staff can make it happen. It's also good for us because it's a little bit of outside revenue that comes in to help support some of our diminishing revenues to operate the programs. They were also instrumental in helping with the City Hall Rotunda redesign. Those of you that have been up there since we removed the pit and made everything at one level. It was redesigned for accessibility and upgraded technology, which worked out very well because during the COVID, we couldn't have meetings with people coming in, so the only way to get the information from the meetings was to blast it live during the meetings, and that's worked out well. Our Parks Department, after I observed the efficiencies by combining economic development, building and planning and zoning into a community development department, it just made sense to me with Jansen's experience and when I was promoting him a number of years ago to ask him if he would also take over cemetery and forestry. Jansen had experience in each of those other departments. They all work out of the same building there at the cemetery, and this would free up a few of the things that Nino had on his plate at the time and was a much needed change. The other advantage that I didn't realize would happen and did was we between all three of those, park, cemetery, forestry, we have one part-time clerk for parks. The other two don't have any, so if they're out mowing the grass at the cemetery, somebody wants to come in and buy a lot, they have to stop what they're doing to come in and try to process that. And sometimes they may be dirty, they may smell a little bit of gasoline because that just goes with the job. So what this has permitted is that clerk can help all three divisions and answer the phone while they're out in the field so that they can stick to some of the field work. And I find it to be a much more effective and efficient customer model. Our Parks Department, they revised the color map of all of our parks to give the public who may not be familiar with them what's really at each park, all the amenities. We extended the East Reagan Parkway Trail. It used to end at Larkins Way, so we extended it from Larkins Way through a grant to the North Court Trail, because what that would do then is tie the residential and people using the parks to the commercial and the commercial, obviously, to the residential and to the parks. We were also missing lighting in a stretch of East Reagan Parkway, so we got a second grant to add lighting to that, and both of those were accomplished. In our parks themselves, we have various sports associations that assist with the respective field maintenance and upkeep. Some of them cut the fields, line the fields, do the infields, you know, with a little machine that drags it and gets it nice before each game. They take care of all of that for us so that we don't have to commit staff for that. We added a new fitness trail at Ray Mellard Park, as well as new fitness equipment. And right now, if you drive by Mellard Park, you'll see they're working on a parking lot extension, and eventually we're going to have a new dog park there. And both of those programs were paid for by capital grants from the state of Ohio. And then I want to specifically mention the foundations of Willard Stevenson and Lincoln. I work with Don at the bank. Mr. Shields serves on the foundation, one of the foundations with me as well. But what we have is at the Miracle League baseball field. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's in Sam Massey Park, and it's for handicapped folks to play baseball. And years ago, they put a hard rubberized surface on the infield, but the outfield was still turf. And they approached the foundations that what that means, in essence, is if you play on that league and you're in a wheelchair or a walker, you can't play in the outfield because of the turf. So both of these foundations were approached, agreed to fund that upgrade, and now every one of those people taking part in that league can play any position on the baseball field, and as it should be, Next, I'd like to talk about the cemetery. Our cemetery staff, which is only 2, help keep the monuments straight and upright, as you can imagine. They work at both the Spring Grove Cemetery, which everybody's familiar with across from St. Francis, but we also have the Old Town Cemetery, which is between the eastern edge of the county administration and St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And it's much older. Some of the folks buried there are from the Civil War era, so that takes a little bit extra maintenance and upkeep and straightening. I'd like to do a special thanks and appreciation to the Friends of the Cemetery, who have donated more than $1.6 million in projects to the city over the years for improvements at our cemetery. And they also helped the city, I should say the city helped them achieve level 2 accreditation by ArbNet for an Arboretum accreditation. It's the first and only Arboretum in Medina County, and it's the species of trees, the volume of trees, the size of trees that came into play to get that designation. And last but not least, for the cemetery, the Independent Order of Oddfellows Morning Star Lodge, number 26, they take care of the baby section at Spring Grove Cemetery all the time and keep it very well maintained. Excuse me. Our Forestry Department takes care of tree pruning and removals from the vast amount of city trees we have. The city of Medina celebrated our 40th Tree City USA Award, and the Forestry Department also works with our local Kiwanis for an annual arbor tree giveaway for our students. The Police Department, under Chief Kinney's leadership, the promotion and enhancement of our community policing efforts continues to grow. We've got 3 full-time school resource officers now. Again, our police department collaborates with LST and fire. The police officers can get to a fire scene first, figure out where the closest hydrants are. If we haven't evacuated the structure, if there is a structure, we take care of that prior to fire arrival. We can help unroll the hoses while they're getting their breathing and heavy equipment on. And when they're ready to go, have everything in place for them. and it's really a good model. The LST calls, we do the same thing. We send an officer first. We have an AED in every car. Sometimes the officers will do CPR, sometimes they'll do the AED, and the person that was not breathing or not having a heart rate at all when the 911 call came in is sitting up and talking when the medics get there. Now, they still have to have that medical intervention to see what the problem was, get to the root cause. But I can tell you, when you're not breathing and your heart's not beating, those seconds are critical. And if an officer can get that done while the squad's on the way, that's good for everybody. We are suffering, as you all are, with less applicants for police officers and dispatchers. In today's environment, I can tell you back when I was taking tests in the early 80s, it was not unusual to go to a gymnasium with 600, 700, 800 people taking a test to try to score high enough to be considered for a police officer. Sometimes now we're getting 15 to 20. And then of that 15 and 20, a percentage can't pass the physical fitness. And then the rest can't pass the physical or the psychological or the background. So it's a challenge for us, just as it is for you. With the police department, we're doing a lot more with technology. We have body cameras, well before most people did, car cameras, as well as we make good use of cameras in the community. You'd be surprised how many businesses or how many residences have doorbell cameras. So we start investigating a car break-in or a theft from somebody's front yard, start knocking on doors, and you start piecing that video all together, and we're able to successfully conclude some of those cases as a result of that technology and its availability. More recently, we started an aerial vehicle program, also called drones, and they really help. Three of the major things they help with are fires, because the hot spots through infrared can be determined while the drone is up in the air to assist the fire department. Missing persons, sometimes Alzheimer's folks wander away, they're standing in a woods somewhere, they can help with that, and obviously fleeing suspects. We have a suspect take off from an officer, run through a ravine or into a wooded area, rather than just risk going in there and having something happen to one of the officers. They can set up a perimeter, get a drone up in the air through the infrared, find out exactly where he is, and make a coordinated response to go in there and get him like we all want to do. Ongoing trainings, our department does Lexipol daily trainings. What that is a training of all of our policies and procedures. And that's important from a liability standpoint. Have you trained in these things? Should we be the subject of a lawsuit? So not only do we train every day on them. And then the Police Officers Training Academy, they kind of took a lull through COVID, but what they're doing now is you have to have so many hours a month that the officers, to maintain their certification, have to watch these online videos. They're not doing as much in person anymore. It's more online. But that works just as well for our officers, because instead of sending them away both the drive time and back for 4 or 5 hours, they can sit down for an hour and watch the video and get it completed. Our service department is comprised of sanitation, streets, vehicle maintenance, and water departments. Our service director, Nino Piccoli, I know he's well known in the group here. He does an excellent job of staffing between these 4 divisions and meeting the ever-changing demands. Having a common union, we have a Teamsters union. So when I say union, I'm talking collective bargaining agreement. Having a common union with all of the service departments, as well as parks, cemetery, and forestry, gives us great latitude in taking and adjusting those people. We can't adjust their pay or their job classification, but if we need more help in streets, more help in sanitation, we have the ability to do that. And we have a great working relationship with the Teamsters Union, and they're thankful. They're thankful that we're working the people, we're not laying off people, and we're taking care of their folks. So our sanitation department, we do a yard waste program at no extra charge. where we collect grass clippings, branches, leaves, whatever, from April through November. In 2021, we collected 1,200 tons of organic recycling, over 1,000 tons of vegetable-based waste, and over 250 tons of commercial cardboard. So if you add that all up, every one of those tons is not going to a landfill, and the city is not paying $53, $54 per ton for those things. And they're being put to good use. The cardboard's being recycled, and the other is being mulched or turned into something else that's productive. We get compliments of the staff friendliness as well. Sometimes, as you can imagine, we do our own sanitation here, as I mentioned. They show up at your street that morning, and maybe your can was knocked over by an animal that tore some of the bags, or maybe you didn't have it in the can, it was in bags, and now your garbage is littered on the street there. I get calls routinely of folks that watch them stop, get it picked up as best they could, and cleaned up, and we appreciate that. Our streets department, they clean our catch basins routinely to avoid flooding. Excuse me. The reason we do that is if it gets plugged up with leaves and twigs, and you know, maybe there's a piece of litter there, the water can't go into the storm sewer. And if the water can't go into that storm sewer and the next storm sewer, pretty soon down the line, flooding is going to occur. So this is a preventative measure to make sure that they're working correctly and that they're cleaned out, and we'll accept the water when we need it. Because we tease Patrick pretty routinely, we have these 100-year floods now about every 4 or 5 months, and it's just been unusual here in these last few years. The other thing that the streets department does, one of the other things, is they rebuild the catch basins along the curbs. You may see some of them are either lifted or sunken, and you'll see a cone there for a while until we get the chance to get out there and rebuild the structure. Many of those were brick back in the day, because that's how they built them, brick, kind of like a chimney under this road. But what happens is the brick deteriorates after a while. So now what we have is a form of solid concrete that goes around the basin. That'll last much longer, won't have the deterioration we saw with the bricks, and then they reset the catch basin. Now, one thing we changed when I took over as mayor, not because I ride a bike, but because the bicyclists appreciate this, is it used to be the grates were going parallel with the curb, and if you had one of those bikes with those skinny little tires and got close to that, it would literally catch the tire. And the bike would stop, but you likely wouldn't. So what we're doing now is there's another design of catch basins where the grate is angled from the curb at about a 45-degree angle out. So unless you're taking a strange course, there should be no way to get your tire into there. We put 765 gallons of grout to repair over 930 feet of failing storm sewer pipes. And if you think about that, by sending a machine in to blow this grout in there as it's moving along and plug the holes, that's a lot cleaner on the yard, it's a lot less expensive, and a lot more can be done than actually digging up 930 feet and replacing it totally. We have an annual leaf program that the street department members are responsible for. They also, through a state grant, replace numerous decorative lights in the downtown. And if you've been at City Hall, the 4 between the parking deck and City Hall were also put up by our street department. And they hang the banners and flags in the city for us when we need those. Our vehicle maintenance department, we handle all equipment in the city. It's not just the licensed vehicles, it's all equipment. So when you think about that with the city of what all we own, you know, from blowers to trimmers to mowers to backhoes to you name it, they're responsible for all of that. They've obtained modernized and improved diagnostic equipment. And how we work this program is each department is then billed for the parts and an hourly rate for labor, which generates the revenue then to pay for the department. So the police department pays some, the fire department pays some, the parks department pays some. Now the other efficiency of having this in-house is the fact that we've got 4 vehicles lined up that need attention. If we have a fire vehicle or a police vehicle that we need to maintain operations, running the program yourself gives you the flexibility of saying we need this before this parks truck. No disrespect, Jansen, but we'll get to it. Our water department has changed out numerous residential and commercial water meters. I still love that slide. We had 41 water main breaks in 2021. And back to technology, data command is what we use for notifying our staff of issues with the water department. So for years, literally from 2002 to 2019, we were using radio signals, and sometimes that's not very timely. So we switched to cell service, which is real time, just like the cell phones in your pockets or purse, that we get immediate notification if there's any issue with our water line. A pump's down, a tank is dropping, there's a problem where the water comes from Avon Lake to the Spieth Road tank. We get immediate notification of that, and that provides us the ability to respond, again, more effectively and efficiently. The water staff is also, I talked about the 3 utility companies running fiber through our city. They're the group that has to go out there and mark each and every one of those lines. The Medina Municipal Airport, I'd like to publicly thank Earl Olson and Flight Services for their many, many years of airport operations of our airport. The city is in the process of transitioning to a new operating management team. We're also working with the FAA. The city gets grant dollars from the FAA for certain things they're willing to fund. And one of them is if it's on your master plan to expand and the property to the east of us, of our airport is available. So we're trying to lay out our master plan, including that, to include more space for hangars, larger maintenance hangars, and storage hangars for airplanes, because there's a great desire for this. The plan is, with this property then, eventually, hopefully in the not too distant future, is to lengthen the runway for small jet takeoff. Our runway length right now, the pilots are not insured if they take off from a runway that's the size ours is. But if we can get it out just a little bit further, then they could. And any of the pilots that we've talked to consider Medina a feeder versus going to Cleveland Hopkins, Burke Lakefront, or Akron Canton. They'd much rather come here. They can get in and out of here very quickly without all the red tape and waiting and all the processes in those larger airports. So anything that we can do to improve the operations, increase the operations, will help make the airport much more self-sufficient in the future. And I know many of our industrial members use it pretty regularly. I want to just take a moment and talk about our community partners. The Kiwanis meets here. The Noon Kiwanis meets here, and every year they have a 50th anniversary celebration for all of the couples who have been married 50 years. They have a student Christmas shopping around Christmas time. They care for the Jump Park playground. They provide the Medina County Sports Hall of Fame and the National Arbor Day, as I mentioned earlier, here with the local students. The Rotary, just Sunday they had a service at the 9/11 Memorial on North Huntington Street next to Fire Station 1, and they help us maintain and upkeep that memorial so it looks nice day in and day out. The Lions Club donates non-perishable foods to Cups Cafe Pantry. And the next group is churches. I know we have a number of pastors here. I'm not going to ask you to stand, but if you just raise your hand for the crowd, I'd appreciate it. Pastor Wilson. Our churches, I'm very thankful that we work together with our churches. The city works with the churches, and the churches work together with the city. We do a Love Medina program that Grace Medina has been doing in the spring, and they've invited some of the other local churches to join them instead of just Grace Medina. And in the fall, St. Francis is doing one. And what this is for our disabled and senior citizens. If they need the leaves raked, if they need the shed painted, if they need the bushes trimmed, and they just can't do it themselves, we come out twice a year through the grace of these churches and do that. They organize a lunch for our police department members. A bunch of the churches join in for that. And it's so much food that our police department can't eat it all, nor would I want them to eat it all. So we invite all the other departments too to come in and share with that. They provide the annual Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, the Black History Month events, a Unity Festival. And the Unity Festival is something pretty special. This is going to be our second year. Pastor Ruffin has worked on organizing it with the pastors. And what it is to bring all of the churches and meet at a church. In this case, it's Cornerstone. But the message that it sends, and it's 3 days, it's about an hour service on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But the message that it sends is, how can we unify the community if we as churches can't be unified together, meet together, work together, take part in the service together, and pray together. And thank you, Pastor, for that leadership in organizing that. We do a Veterans Day concert, Black History Month, if I missed that. And then Pastor Wilson is here just on a couple weeks ago, August 28th, Sunday, August 28th, a new program, Community Alliance Project, took place at Mellard Park off of Foundry Street. And what it was meant to do is draw on the different groups that are working on the northwest area of the city and the youth, and bring them together to have hot dogs and hamburgers and interact and play kickball and have the community leaders, the police department, the fire department, LST all come out and interact with them. And the other thing they did at this inaugural one was a young man who was having a little trouble in school. And he was tutored, and he was mentored, and he was helped, and got a full scholarship to college to play football. And they gave him an award for that to use as an example for the other youth, that if you need help, everybody here is willing to do that for you. All you need to do is reach out. Don't just accept you can't do this or you can't do that. Just reach out. And we're hoping for more and more success stories, Pastor Wilson. And then last but not least, for the community partners are the citizens. We have volunteer groups that do things for the city, foundations, commissions, and many of the citizens serve on boards and commissions. Next is the finance department. Excuse me. I'm proud that the city has one of the lowest income tax rates in the state of Ohio at 1.25% with partial credit. It's lower than the other cities in our county, and it's lower than most of the cities in the state of Ohio. When I was first elected mayor, the income tax annually was generating about $12 million. And we were doing okay. In 2022, it's expected to generate more than $18.5 million. That's a 54% increase. 54% increase. And the reason for that is back to the slide where we talked about the massive commercial and industrial investment in our community and the jobs that are being created by that. And that's what's driving this. And the benefit of that is, without raising income tax, which none of the council nor I want to do unless absolutely necessary, is it gives us more funds for ongoing operations. As you all know, the cost of everything has gone up. Inflation is both at home and at your work is having a real impact. So that increase is letting the city weather through that. And I'm proud of the staff doing all they do to create these abilities. Keith, at the request of council, at Keith's suggestion, and the council blessed it, we took a look at our bonds to refinance them. We had issued bonds before when we did the industrial road projects, and now, at the time he did it, this is in 2021, the interest rates were much lower. So we were able to refinance our bonds and get a lower interest rate, end up with lower payments on the bonds, and free up $7.5 million for road improvements, which now my goal is residential streets, because we have the commercial or the industrial in pretty decent shape. So this is going to add another $7.5 million to what we normally get in income tax to do the road improvements. Okay, Miles. So, in closing, I just want to thank you all for coming. By the way, that's Princess Madison. She's going to be 7 in December, and her sidekick there is Prince Aiden. He's going to be 3 in November. Those are their 4th of July outfits that they walked in the parade with Grandpa, and Chris and I are so blessed to have them and spend time with them and have them here locally. But I want to conclude by thanking all of you for your support and investment in our community. This is my 13th State of the City presentation to you, and each year I'm further impressed and proud of how you all support and promote this community. It's very much appreciated, and I thank every one of you. May God bless you, your families, your staff, and the city of Medina. Thank you.